Okay, let us start. Okay. So we were in chapter 13, that is nature, kshetra, kshetrajna, nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So let us pay our obeisance to Radha Radha Govinda. Kaya chakshumitamena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vittam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saha Gana Lalita Shri Vishakana Vittamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Ancha kalpaturapyascha kripa Vaishnavyo namo namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschateshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So let us begin. So we were doing the chapter 13 and it had 6 sections and started with Arjuna's 6 questions. What is Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, Neyam? Then Krishna first answers 3, 4 and 5. That is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam. Okay. The field of activities and the knower of the field. Then in 8 to 12, he answers the question 5. That is Jnanam. What is the knowledge and what is the process of knowledge and liberation? Then it goes to 6 and then the last from 20 to 35 is about Prakriti, Purusha and the vision. Okay. So this chapter, from this on, we are starting the Jnana Yoga. So in chapter 1 to 6, we saw how work can become as a worship to the Lord. Then Karma Yoga. So then perfection actions performed to please energies, and also we saw Arjuna's acceptance of the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we saw the 4th Chatusloki, how to go back and the thing. And then finally he talked about this different stages, progressive stages of bhakti. Then chapter 13, what is he giving? Is Jnana Yoga, and how to perfect it. That is finally how to perfect Bhakti Yoga, because only by this we can try to detach ourselves from the material world. So that is why we are looking at the thing. So here, then in the last week, we saw about how this Kshetra and Kshetrajna, that is like a farmer and his land. He knows whatever about his land. Like same way, the Jiva will know about his body. Okay. And there's another person who knows about the body is the Paramatma, who is there with him. Same way, the king who owns all the lands and he has given it leased to the farmer, he knows all the lands. Whereas the farmer knows only about his land. So the Paramatma is there in all the living entities, moving and non-moving and everywhere, and he is controlling and maintaining this cosmic universe. So he knows everything, every nook and corner. So Kshetra. So for whom it is given, who gets it as a field of activity is the conditioned soul. That is Jiva. And why? because he's entrapped, he wanted to enjoy himself. He had the desire to lord of. So because of that, now he is conditioned in this material existence because of his attempts to lord it, because of his desire to enjoy by himself. And how does he get the body? Criteria to decide which body depends on his capacity to dominate the material energy. According to the capacity to enjoy sense gratification, one gets a particular body to function. So it depends upon his desires and his karmic realities. Okay. So Kshetrajna, so knower of the field. How to understand the difference between the body and the knower of the body. So how to understand the difference? That is what we are trying to know, the knower and the body. Okay. It depends on based on the changing phases of the body. Okay. See, the bodies keep changing. Now, we don't have the same body what we had as a baby, then we grow. And so the body is changing every day. Even now, even from today or tomorrow, our body is changing all the time. So changing phases of the body. And we have that intuitively, we can understand these changes which is happening in ourselves. So we are the intuitive, that is the knower of the field. And then now if you look at the knowledge, what was given by Krishna in the 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita, first he talked about what we are, no? That is our position. We are the soul and not the body. Discuss the knower of the body, position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord. Okay, we are the soul and not the body. So we are a part and parcel of it. Then he discussed the super personality of Godhead, the relation between individual soul and the super. So that is, we have come from him only. Only thing is because we wanted to Lord, or we had this desire to enjoy ourselves, the propensity to enjoy ourselves. So we have come. And it describes the superior position of Krishna because he is the one who is the cause of all causes. He is creating, then he is annihilating, he is maintaining everything. And how this Mahatattva, he explains, and his separated energies. And we are the subordinate position of living material. And we are there to serve it. Then 4 kinds of pious men who approach the Lord. He said, no, even after all that, who surrenders to him and who does not, and who is a Mahatma and who is Duratma, and all that he explained there. Now he is explaining how the living entity comes in contact with the material nature, how living entity is delivered by the Lord to different. So here, because we have in this material nature, so we should know more about it, now how our association is, why there's a thing. So this part now he's giving more explanation. But at this stage, Arjuna is clear that Supreme Lord is the personality of Godhead. But he wants this clarification to be explained much more. This part of his thing, he says, please explain more about this Kshetra. So that's how we are in this chapter today. Answers 3, 4, and 5, the thing and right. So we saw that when the body, I mean, this, I just only for recap, I brought these pictures again. See, when we are awake, the body is active, the mind is active, then along with it, the soul and Paramatma is there. When the body is sleeping, but the mind is not, because then we are having our dreams and all that, so it's still active. But soul and Paramatma is still there. When you're in deep sleep, both and subtle body and the gross body have gone to sleep, but the soul and Paramatma is there. So this is what it says, know is called knowledge. So knowing this, understanding this is knowledge. That is my opinion. So you should understand that I'm also the knower. And he is there in everyone. He's there in the ant, he's there in the Brahma, and every living entity, Jiva, Paramatma is there. So, and we saw the difference between soul and super soul. So soul, we can think it as the separated energy. It talks about it, the separated energy in the chapter 7 is talked. Whereas the super soul is a personal expansion. See, he expands himself to create this cosmic thing by Mahavishnu. That is a Karnavdaksha Vishnu. Then Garbhodakshina Vishnu, how he enters into each globe. And then from his navel, Brahma has been created and he is given the duty to create other planets and other houses for jivas to come. And then he expands himself as Shiva Dakshina Vishnu to enter into each atom and each jiva to energize. So he is a personal expansion, whereas soul is separated energy, like, and he's half, and they're a tiny part of it. Okay. Anu and his Vibhu. So we saw these differences. Explain. Hare Krishna. Anyway, so then we looked into the text 6 and 7. Then we talked about the 24 elements. What are the components of the field elements, activities? There are 5 great Panchabhutas, then sense objects, then our working senses and knowledge acquiring senses, the mind, intelligence and false ego, and the pradhana. So the interaction of the gross and the subtle body with the pradhana, that's how the 5 great elements are representation as well as. So basis of this knowledge, we have got it. There are authorities, even Vedic scriptures tell the same thing, and we saw that, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and all that we looked at in the last class. And we saw that that's how the 6 stages are there: takes birth, grows, stays, products, and so all these interactions and transformation of the field of activities, then what the field of activity consists of, and explains the transformation and the interaction. So we saw that because of these 20. This is Sankhya philosophy. In the part of it, we looked into it. Okay. And then
Mataji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
so can we just go back to this pradhana? I want to is not very much clear.
It's the modes of nature, Prabhuji. It's the modes of nature. Okay, the technically called as materialist conception of buddhi, intelligence, represents unmanifested 3 modes. That is the modes of nature called pradhana. Okay, so we are in the different modes that will come more in the next chapter, but these are the different modes of nature we have. Okay, that is pradhana, right? The way it is active. The interaction. So we have a field, we have, when it's not enough just to have a eyes, and the soul is knowing that he has eyes, but you must have some form, to see, something to interact with, isn't it? And how he looks at the form, in what mode he looks at it, that depends upon his nature, isn't it? It's modes of nature, whether he's looking at the modes of goodness or passion or thing. So that is where the differences come. So that's what the effect is difference. That's why we say pradhana is there. Okay. So this has been given, and this all we looked at in the last chapter, right? The verses 6 and 7.
So basically, the pradhanas are the medium through which the soul and the
the way we look at it, influence, interact.
Yeah.
In the interactions is different, no, Prabhuji, different in the how. If everything is same, if all jivas are identical, then it should be the same interaction. But why there are different interactions? Like in a family, you have 4 or 5 children, right? Why they are in the same parents and same environment, but why are they different? Their natures are different, isn't it?
Yes.
That is what we are saying, that influences are there because of the modes of nature. So that's why it's called as, that part is known as pradhana, to give the differences. Okay. And that you get it from because of your effect from your karmic reactions and your desire. And each one has, and when he's born itself, you will get that propensity will be there in it because of the result of it. That's a destiny he has created. Now, he question is the process of knowledge and so how to understand this. So that how to understand this knowledge is what we discussed here about when there's many qualities he had listed out, Krishna, in these verses. Humility means not to be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored. Non-violence means not to put others in distress unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge. One is practicing things. So tolerance is to bear insult and dishonor. That is very difficult because we are more with identifying ourselves with that body. So we feel insulted and why people are not respecting. Simplicity. But accepting a spiritual master is very easy because he will help us to cultivate this knowledge. Then we have to be determined to make, see, this steadiness, determination makes a big role, once we have understood, if we have heard this, and we should be determined to make progress in spirit, because our focus, yes, we have to take care of many other duties and we have work, everything is there. But we have to find some time for spiritual life. We have to make progress in spiritual life. That determination should be there with us. For that, we need to be self-controlled, reject anything unfavorable to spiritual advancement. Then so many other things, renunciation, then absence of ahankara is something that is comes because unless I am still in the body identity, then it becomes difficult. If I accept that I am Krishna's servant, then slowly we can come, but this is very difficult to come out of it. Maya will always be testing us. Okay, that is why spiritual master is required. And there are other qualities, that means detachment, be ready to sacrifice everything for Krishna. These all will come at advanced stages. Okay, still we have to start with the neophyte. Finally, I mean, by engaging oneself in the 9 process of bhakti, we saw, no? The smaranam, shravanam, kirtanam, smaranam, I think. Start off with shravanam and kirtanam. That's the first step, being in sadhu sangha. So, philosophy, then detach. Then also aspiring to be that you can't be in anything, but we can not desire to mix with materialistic people. Live in association of devotees will help a lot. So the process of knowledge will finally end in Ananya Bhakti. Okay. But that we need an Acharya Upasana, a spiritual master. And these are some of the important things: humility, non-violence, self-control, detach from general master. If little slowly, if we practice this under the guidance of a master, it will help us to get. So this is the process. And knowledge is not something which we get. We are talking about the knowledge in the materials, that is to those knowledge which we get from the school and from college. There's all for getting some skills to maintain this body, to get a job, to acquaint this, to be in this society and all that. That is kind of thing which is being given in today's education system. But this is purely spiritual knowledge which we are talking about. And
excuse me, Mataji, sorry to interrupt, Mataji.
No, Prabhuji,
So sometimes I think, so sometimes I think, means how people get motivated towards this spiritual development. So means what is the impetus they feel, means what is the need by which they would, for example, my case means I came across maybe accidentally, then I started this, but how the other people would realize the importance of these things, means what means will Krishna motivate them inherently, or how they will realize by virtue of some
Prabhuji, see, it's like this, Prabhuji. It's like this material, because today we are in this bodily platform, means we are having sense gratification, right? We have a lot of desires for fulfilling our desires for sense gratification. Like, say, we take some example, like I want a car, and you will be thinking of that car and thing, but slowly what happens, you might get till that you will be anchoring for it. Then once you get the car, then after some time, that anchoring for that car will slowly come down, that happiness, the joy you got at the first, in the beginning stage, you might have been overjoyed. Then slowly when you see others also having the same car, then your joy will come down a bit. Then when you see others getting a car much bigger than yours, a much later model, again your joy will come down. So, I mean, I just took the example of getting a car. Okay, you want to have a car which you feel that is the ultimate happiness for you. Same way, the happiness which you derive from the material things, that in the beginning it will be like, and slowly you'll get frustrated. That, that happiness, okay, you might have got 10 houses, then you would have got this and everything. And then you'll think, what more I need? Like, then when he gets into that frustration mode, or when he feels there's no point, whatever he do, he's not going to be happy in the end. That's when he starts looking what is more in it. That is when he has even done charity to others. You have seen rich people, they have got everything, but still there are some who go into depressive mode. Some people will take to suicide also. So why do they do it? if they have everything, material things. That means there's somewhere they have frustrated in the mind, or there's something which they feel it's not right. That means their happiness is not there. Then they will start looking where it is, why it is so. So that's the stage. So even Prabhupada, Prahalad is chewing the chew, He keeps on thinking the same way. Okay, this is what is meant for to be happy. Today it's the car. Tomorrow it will be some other object. Then he'll go to some other object. He thinks that is the one which will give him happiness. Finally, he'll find that even if I have all this, I'm not happy.
Right.
So that's the stage when the people go and they start internally thinking of it. What is there? That's when Paramatma inside you knows the thing. He is understanding what you are anchoring for. Then he will try to get you some literature from outside. Like, either you come into contact with some person, like some message comes to you, then it strikes you. Many times such messages would have come, but it not have caught your attention. But why it catches your mind now? That means you must be thinking of it subconsciously inside you, why you're not satisfied with what you're doing. So that's when probably it happens. And it happens for different people. Some people might be in a second like this. Some people will take some time, and it goes on. And we keep putting this ad. Like next batch we start. But not everybody will come. Though you tell others, they may not be in that position today. Okay, he's simply gone mad or something like that, they'll comment. But only when you've gone into it and you're realizing there's something in this Bhagavad Gita, you're sitting and listening and you're trying to understand. Isn't it, Prabhuji?
Right. Exactly.
So that is how people come into this. So, these qualities he has mentioned, we can't just get it. We have to cultivate. So, that cultivating that kind of knowledge, these qualities is what is the real method of acquiring knowledge. That's what is being told by Krishna. Anything if you, by speculation, that won't be, those are items of knowledge. So, we looked at Jnanam. Then he says, who is the object of knowledge? Finally, it is the super soul. Super soul is the object of knowledge and we exist everywhere, pervades everything. His sense, he is the source of all senses, he is unattached, he maintains all living. So only, and who can understand? Only the devotee can understand this. That is, understand the relation between this body, why this body is there and what is the process of knowledge. And what is, who is there in the soul and super soul. Only when you come to this stage of understanding, then only a devotee can understand. So here, if you give it to an atheist, he may not understand this even, this one. So object of knowledge is no other than the relation between the super soul, soul and the field of activities. So I shall now explain the noble, knowing which you will taste the eternal Brahman, beginless, rise beyond the course. So we saw that last time. And here he says why we should know they are the real objects to be seen. Okay. Who are the noble? Vijnana Brahma. That is living entity as the noble. And who is the super soul? Is the noble and the knower. Is the knower also. And benefits is you will get, then you will understand and you'll be able to relish this life. What is the purpose of this life? Is to go back to him. So that is why it's like a Sankhya analysis, the whole thing, and he's giving the knowledge. He is a super soul. Then, and this one we saw, although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, it's never divided. It's like the sun. Sun is there. Sunshine is there in everyone, in my room, in all thing, and it's spread everywhere. So we have, and he is, and when he is like that in all the living entities, his sunshine is felt. Okay, but the sun is far away, the same one. So that is how we have to understand how the super is is situated in one and is the maintainer of every living entity. Okay, so that is the thing. Then he is the source of light in all humanness, and like that, our soul, unless the soul is there, this body is not. The consciousness should be there, for us to know about the body being there. So same way, the source of light is the object of knowledge. Okay. So beyond the darkness of matter is unmanifested, is no knowledge, object of knowledge and goal of knowledge. And so understanding the super soul, and he is there in everyone's heart, he is the permitter, he is the observer, he is the controller, everything, and he is a well-wisher. And he is in every living entity, and to the Brahman. So he is there in everyone. The field of activities, knowledge and novel have been summarily discussed by me. Only my devotees can understand this. Otherwise, non-devotees, no, they are envious. They say, oh, this is all nothing. After this life, they won't even believe in their rebirth. Non-devotees. They think once this is over, it's over. Nothing else. But they will be, they always be caught in the cycle of birth and death. So, only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. That is, as we saw, this is the example given in Upanishads about two birds in a tree. This bird is all the time looking at the fruits and trying to eat this and this. That is the sense. Unless it starts looking towards where there's another bird, Paramatma, who is sitting there and waiting for it to come back to him. Then only then our spiritual life can start and we can slowly attain his nature. So, and here we clear qualification to understand this Sankhya philosophy is only Mad Bhakta, that is only by devotees. He can understand this interaction, soul and the super soul. Okay. What is that knowledge? Knowledge means understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness and realizing Krishna in everything. He is there in everything. Knowledge is nothing but preliminary stages of understanding. That is when we start our devotional service to the Lord. Okay. This science was given. Conclusion was explained. So, super soul is the ultimate object to be known. Finally, it comes to we have to know Krishna. Okay. Now we'll start this. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformation and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So how do we understand this? So here it says we are eternal. Okay. Material nature and the living entity are eternal. There is no beginning to it. That means it was there. We are there from the energy of the Supreme Lord. So material manifestation is from the energy of the Lord. And we are also part and parcel of the Lord, right? Also from the energy. So also living entities. But only our energy, the soul, living Jiva, has got superior energy because we are part and parcel of it. Whereas material nature is inferior. But both have been, there is no it is eternal. Okay. And when we are not manifested, we are in the part of Mahavishnu's mind. And when the material world is created, when it is requited, it was manifested by the Mahavishnu. Similarly, living entities also were with him. And when the material world was created, was manifested, not created, was manifested, then we also come out because we had to be, we had the desire to Lord over. So he sends us here so that we can prepare ourselves to go back to the Lord. So we are given a second chance to be in this material world and try to go back to the spiritual world. So we are put in this. That's why it's beginningless. The transformation and the modes are all products. In which way we are in modes and things, what body we get and all that, all depends on our products of material nature. So nature is said to be the cause of all material activities and effects. Living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments. So how to understand this is, we have, because we are desired, some action it takes place, and the action is done by the interaction, that is the Lord will sanction it, and then we interact with the material world. Okay. So this is a little bit, and then the body acts, body, we have the leg and we have the eyes and all that it does the activity. But The instigator is our desire. The soul desires to do something. So it gets, these actions are done by the material body, what we have, right? And then because we instigated that, so the material body is doing those actions. But the effect of it, whether it is enjoyment or it is suffering, we have to own it because we were the cause, because we desired, isn't it? So various sufferings and enjoyments, we are the living entity is the cause because it desired and the body acts. If we didn't have this gross body, how can we walk? If we didn't have this thing, we cannot smell a thing and all that, right? But the instigator, the desire, the first initiator is our body. So we understood why some people say, no, why the good people have the sufferings and enjoyments and all that. So we have certain quota of enjoyments and sufferings. So we have come with that and we have to take it.
Mataji, one question here. Yeah, one question here, Mataji. So, we understand the whatever sufferings and enjoyment, that is because of our largely because of our ignorance, right? We are not sure what is right, what is correct. But once we enter into knowledge, then we start realizing the things, what is correct for us and what is not, right? So during this journey, means sometimes there can be situation, some desire arises inside you, but then you are very sure this is not the right thing. You have to avoid such thing because you have come out of these things. You should not look back. So that spark of those desire, is it right? Means that's what I'm trying to understand, whether the spiritual path I'm following is on the right direction or more refinement is required, or there would be some stage where there would be exactly no desire at all. So that is
there
my
are
question.
certain,
Yeah.
in getting the sufferings, no Prabhuji, there are certain, see, today this birth, we won't be suffering for where all the reactions, okay? There are certain sinful reactions which would be in the seed form. It wouldn't have taken effect. There are some which would have matured form. There are certain things which is really things. So there are sinful reaction. There are two kinds. One is prarabdha, for which we have, that is the one which we are going to suffer in this birth. Aprarabdha is there, which is still there, which is yet to manifest. So we might manifest after, later in this birth, or it could be in the next birth, or whatever it is. That aparadha thing is there, no? There, it is like, like suppose you have stolen something, but you're not caught. Okay, you have not been caught, so you have not given the punishment. But after some time, you might be caught. So, if you're not caught, it is in the aprarabdha stage. It's not in the prarabdha stage. In aprarabdha stage, what happens, if you have committed a sin, that desire to commit, that propensity will exist. Like desire to do something, desiring, that tendency will keep increasing. That is why we say it's like a kutam, and that desire will be there. That internally that desire won't have gone. So like Ajamila, though he was brought up in the Brahmin family and he knew the knowledge, and his father was such a priest in the village, and he was the dutiful son. He was married to a good wife and all that. That one stage when he saw the couple in a passionate embrace, he saw that prostitute. That desire was there internally in him, right from his birth, which had not come up. But the minute he saw that, he couldn't forget. He got caught into that. And he started doing a lot of sinful actions, right? So that desire, root of it, for it to go, it's not enough to do penance, to do charity, or that will not remove that desire. It's only by devotional service to the Lord, taking the shelter of a spiritual master. Only that, the root can be removed. Okay, Prabhuji? That's why we'll be suffering. Have I made it clear?
Yeah,
okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
thank you.
So certain things are still not taken in effect. So Like somebody will have some disease, like sexual disease. Because of the sexual thing, he would have got certain disease, no? And he will take medication and everything, and he'll be cured. But again, he will commit that sin, the sexual thing. Again, he'll go into it. Because he still that desire for that won't have gone from his mind, from his heart. So unless we get that desires have to be purified. That is why we say, take to this yagna, no? So, chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra helps a lot to purify ourselves. Okay, Prabhuji?
Right, Mother.
Okay. And we learn all that as we go into deeper and deeper, this Prabhuji. Living entity follows the way of life according to the three modes. Suppose he's put into the body of a dog, he'll be just like the God. Once he gets into the body of a dog, the soul, he will be following the law of nature. Okay. If he's in the body of a demigod, he'll have all the qualities of a demigod. Okay. But all that knowledge system, the soul will be the same. Soul nature is different. Soul is at Satchitananda, is always blissful. But once it gets into that body, once it gets into that, then law of nature takes care. So this is Supreme Lord is showing that here, but in all that circumstances, Super Soul is always with us. So association with material nature leads to different good and evil among various species. That's how we take birth in the different species of life. So yet in this body, there's another transcendental angel who is the Lord, Supreme Proprietor, who exists as overseer, permitter, and who is known as the Super Soul. So he is there with us. He is the permitter. Permitter because unless his sanction is there, the material nature cannot. Unless the Lord thing, even I can't move my leg also. Okay, not even the thing. So this is there. Permitter, overseer, and thing. He's always there in. And we don't need to know about the past or anything because he knows. Why should I bother to remember that? Okay, so he knows and he can, if we surrender to me. Finally, in the 18th chapter says, you just surrender to me, sir. Paritagya, I will remove all his sinful reactions. Do not fear. So what we need to know about our past or what we did, or whether we are still having a lot of sinful reactions. The minute we take the shelter of the Lord, then he says, no, don't fear, I will release you from all sinful reactions. So that is why, because he is there with us, he knows everything. When he knows everything, then why should we worry? And he will take care of us. So this is what, once you understand this philosophy between the material nature, the living entity, and the interactions of the modes of nature, then we can attain liberation. Otherwise, we keep wondering why we got into this, how this thing happened, and all that. But because here Prabhuji says, one example, it could be a boy who is not well educated and all that. But once he takes shelter of a guru and he follows all the restrictions, that four principles, no meat eating, no illicit sex, and all the restrictions, and takes to the teachings of things, then he'll slowly progress in the spiritual life. Whereas there are people who are well educated and all that, but still they'll be, if they're so educated, then why are they smoking? Why are they drinking? They know, no, it's harmful for the thing. Why do they do that? Isn't it? So that education, so we have to understand how the living entity has fallen into this material world. This is why we see that in the modern society, this is what is problem. Okay. So so how do we understand this knowledge? Some will go through meditation, some through cultivation of knowledge, by others through working without fruitive desire. Okay, that. But Lord, so there are people faithful in spiritual life, they will do dhyana, they'll take to the Vedic scriptures and all that. And then others through the cultivation of knowledge, trying to understand this by reading scriptures and all that. Karma yoga is to do work without fruitive desires. And there are people, atheist scriptures are beyond this sense of virtue. They will never come into this. And also people who think no, they can go and merge with Brahma Jyoti, that is the monism. They also don't come in this. So whereas Krishna devotees of the Lord are best situated in spiritual understanding because they know that beyond the material nature are spiritual world and spirit. So expands as well. So once you understand this, then you are understanding the various type of focus. And above all that, there are some, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, they begin to worship Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Just by hearing, hearing process itself is very important. So you may not know many things before. I may not know all the Vedas and all that. All I need to know is just by hearing about the Lord, hearing about that. So this is very important for the modern society because we don't have to, practically in our society, we don't have any education in spiritual matters. So if we start listening to a devotee, supreme reality devotees, pure devotees, and just hearing by them, hearing about from authorities, they can transcend the path of them. So Lord Chaitanya Prabhu says that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but only one should give up the endeavor to understand the truth by self-speculating this. Don't try to do it on your own because we have imperfect senses, right? We can't learn by ourselves or by just thinking. If we go to an authority, to go to a spiritual, then by hearing from him, hearing from authorities, then we can understand this science problem. Only hearing. One should learn to become servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So if we can take us fortunate enough to take shelter of pure devotees, hear from him about self-realization and follow in footsteps, he will be gradually elevated to the position of purity. So this is what happened when Prabhupada went. So those people were almost in ignorance, right? When they started meeting him, hearing from him, used to every Wednesday and I think weekends used to have talks in the small place we had around those in Second Avenue. So when he started in the beginning, the first 6 months, and I said, no, so they were just listening to him, taking his brothers, just hearing and hearing, then about self-realization, what is the purpose, and hearing from a pure devotee. And they were able to transcend and slowly follow his footsteps. They were gradually, they could come out of their all their intoxications, and they were changed all their habits and started trying to understand the scriptures and following his principles, and whatever restrictions they said, they started controlling, self-control and all that. So that's how this is gone. So hearing from authority is very important in this Kali Yuga, now present stage. Okay. Although the common man is often not as capable as the so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authority person will help one transcend this material instance and go back to Godhead. Back. The purport is very nice. If you read it, no, I'm just reading from the purport only. Hare Krishna. So if you have any doubts here, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Others will go there. Now he's talking about the vision of knowledge. How to see through the jnana. So this knowledge, what we are trying to be gone, how to see through those eyes. One who can see super soul, living entities and material nature in their proper perspective sees through the eyes of knowledge. That is the Chakshu, Jnana Chakshu. O chief of Bharatas, whatever you see in existence, okay? Whatever see in existence, both moving and thing is only the combination of the field of factors and the order. So here we are in like a spiritual realized person can distinguish between spirit and matter in all the circumstances. But we are all many times we get identifying ourselves with the body itself, combination of the things. Okay. So whatever you see in existence, only a combination of field actors and also non-moving. So we have to understand this knowledge. One who accompanies the many souls and understands that neither the soul nor the soul, super soul is ever destroyed actually sees. Okay. So he is there in all the living entities and is pervading. And we are not destroyed. It's only the body which gets destroyed. Okay. Is the actual seer. How such vision is possible? By good association with real knower of the spiritual subjects. Who is the man in real knowledge? One who can see three things in its proper perspective. That is the body, the proprietor, it's a proprietor, that's the soul, and the super soul. Okay. Once you understand this in the proper perspective, then he is a man in real knowledge. Okay. And how we can do that? Only by good association. Otherwise, we can't. Being body and equal everywhere, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. Okay. So, once he understands this, then he won't pursue the selfish desires. What is the current situation of living entity? He has, what is the role of mind? Certain one has situated himself differently than in spiritual world. He thinks this is the world he has to live and he doesn't know about the spiritual world. And what does the mind do? He's generally addicted to sense gratification, which binds the living entity in the material world. But if you tell the mind and the mind turns to the super soul, one becomes advanced. Okay. And then one approaches the transcendental destination. So this is the actual seer. So what do we to do? It's the mind which will try to take you towards the sense gratification. We have to be self-control. We have to control the mind. And with that we can do only with association and taking the guidance of scriptures and the spiritual masters. Okay. And determination that I want to progress. That also is like a force, which will force you to put your mind towards the super soul. Okay. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees the self does nothing, actually sees. Okay. That is the how to become an observer and not get identifying yourself that I am doing these things. You identify yourself with the body. Okay. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different bodies, sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. So that's, how I can know if I progressed is this. When you come to the Brahman realization, you will be prasannatma. You will be really joyful. You will be satisfied with whatever is being coming to you. Okay. And you will be in that. It takes long time to come to that stage, but still, once you desire to go there, then Krishna will, once you take one step towards him, he takes 10 steps, 100 steps towards you to help you out. He will try to he will not only give you from inside prerna, from outside also, he will try to get you things so that help to go further. So vision, all activities are performed which is created by nature. Self does nothing. When does he attain Brahman's position? When purified consciousness can develop, that's Krishna consciousness. Ceases different. The absence of. So when the pure devotees, when we see, they will be not looking at them as he's a drunkard or he's a rich man, he's an industrialist. For him, it's a soul. Paramatma is there in all of them and it's just a living entity. For him, he doesn't look at his things. So only we get think to them. So it says how beings are expanded everywhere. So this is one. But those with the action of eternity can see that the impression is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes. And finally, he gives an example like a sky. So this soul, what we have, it is not mixed with the body. It is separate. Like the sky does not mix with anything. And it's all pervading. And it's within the thing. Similarly, a soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in the body. So that is the stage to reach, when by understanding this, knowledge, whatever he has explained in this chapter. Sun illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminates the entire body by consciousness. So this is the one which you have. So if you direct your consciousness, now shift your consciousness to Krishna consciousness, that's all we are is being told in this essence in this chapter. That means you have to turn towards the super soul. Okay. So finally, we have to contemplate on this and come for realization. So one who knowingly sees this difference between body and owner of the body can understand the process of liberation. So how to get liberated from this bondage and attain the Supreme Soul is try to understand this difference, how we are getting entangled into this body. Okay. So a faithful person at least have finally starting with there some good association to hear of God. Then gradually he'll become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, he can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit to start with. And thus becomes a stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life by various instructions. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to flee from material concepts. So we saw analysis in this chapter, 24 elements, that is the gross manifestation. And then we saw the psychological effects and now the interactions. Above all that is soul, and there is also super soul. Okay. So material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 elements. So once we understand this, we need to contemplate and try to understand. This is a tough chapter to realize, but still, if you read the purpose, keep going through it, we can understand this. Okay. Is there any chapter?